The RX8's 232 horsepower, high-revving Renesas rotary engine rockets from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.9 seconds.
What a ridiculous claim, and it's either not true or my RX8 feels like it's lost a lot of that 232 horsepower. Let's get this car in the dyno and see what it actually makes. We're here at Driver Motorsports today to use their dyno and find out how much horsepower my RX8 is making. All right, Ben, how much power do you think it's gonna make?
It's rated at 232?
232 brake horsepower, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say 190.
Okay, so 40 horsepower drivetrain loss? Okay, okay.
I don't actually know where Mazda's getting that 230 number.
I don't know, yeah, it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like 170, I'll be honest.
Okay.
So
you're guessing 170?
I think I'm guessing 170. $172, that's pretty good. The torque is not as good as I was hoping. Yeah, it's not a lot of horsepower. It's not a lot of horsepower, but it is a good chassis, and it still feels good. It's not all about the power.
I mean, does it feel good to get absolutely walked by anything? Like my S2000, my underpowered S2000?
No, not anything. It's definitely faster than a Honda Fit, okay? When they came out, this car was the same price as an S2000.
Yeah, you know what that's called?
What?
Overpriced.
It's got wide wheel wells. Wide arches. I can put a lot of tire on this car.
You can't turn the tires.
It's, well...
you don't have enough power to turn the tires. Ben, I bet you anything that my S2000 would walk this thing on a track. Like, obviously in a straight line, but even on the tightest, lowest speed track, like lowest horsepower required track, I would walk you in my S2000.
All right,
That's
I'll take
how
that
confident
bet.
I am.
All right, let's go. Track battle. RX8 versus S2000?
Yeah.
A tale as old as time.
No one's ever talked about this. This is not a tale.
You know, okay, so let's set the rules for this challenge. Ben Lin is challenging my RX8 to a race. We're gonna have Driving Line host and mediate the challenge between the two cars. We'll be taking them out to Summit Point Shenandoah Circuit like we did last year with our Driving Line challenge between my Civic and his MR2. But this time, the odds are certainly in Ben's favor. His S2000 produces 214 wheel horsepower, and my RX8, well, it doesn't. I'm also pretty sure that the S2000 weighs a few hundred pounds less than my RX8. So we clearly need to make some upgrades to the RX8 in order to keep up. But unfortunately, there's not many things that we can do to increase the horsepower outside of maybe a Bridgeport. Well, I guess I'm gonna Bridgeport this thing because that's kind of the only way that I can actually make power with an NA rotary. So we're gonna try it. I'm gonna take the engine that we already took out of this car, the old engine, and rebuild that one and then just swap the engines over. I am nowhere near skilled enough to do that because I don't know what the inside of a rotary engine looks like, but I know somebody who does, and that is Erich from Rad Potential.
My name is Erich. I run the Rad Potential YouTube channel, and I build rotary engines and rotary cars in the woods of Indiana. I've been driving this yellow, low compression Mazda RX-8 around, and we're gonna see how long it lasts. A little history about myself and my background with rotary engines. About 10 years ago, when I went off to college, I needed a college car. So I was hunting for a first generation RX-7, being inspired by Rod Millen and his Rally 1984 RX-7. So I found a 1980 Mazda RX-7, drove that to college, and at Cars and Coffee, I met a guy named Johnny and his father-in-law named Charles, who had RX-7s and a rotary truck. From there, I was able to learn all sorts of things about rotary engines. Charles had been rebuilding rotary engines for about 30 years, so he helped me tune up my car a little bit, get it all running right, and from there, it has been an addiction of rotary cars. Somehow they just find me, and I've ended up with different RX-8s, RX-7s, engines, and started building engines for other people. It's including a 4-rotor streetcar FD RX-7 for my friend Johnny. So if you watch the previous videos, Ben's engine had been sitting for a very long time. A common thing with the rotaries when they sit is the coolant seals will rust, the coolant passages will rust, the engine will take all that water into the combustion chamber and it can lock up. Fortunately, Ben was able to get his engine running, and we're going to be taking this engine apart in order to investigate a whole lot of smoke that came out of it. Seemed like coolant smoke from the video, but I wasn't here to smell it. But we'll get this engine taken apart. hopefully it's just a coolant seal, inspect everything else, see what parts we need to replace, and get this engine rebuilt, ported, so that we can put it back in his car and he can make a little bit more horsepower than a stock Renesas engine would. Yeah, so here we can show you something cool and interesting about the RX8s. So these are your auxiliary port sleeves. So what happens is at 6,500 RPM, these turn, and you can see right now it's closed off. At 6,500 RPM, they open into the engine, so on the top end, you get all the horsepower. This one rotates up from the bottom. So if those aren't working, you will not make horsepower, and your car will be very, very slow.
And just like that, we're down to the keg, as it is called. And also, I wanna point something out here. People telling me to, oh, well, you can 13B swap it, or the Renesas isn't as good as a 13B. And that's just ignorance, because the Renesas is technically a 13B, and it says so right there. If you want to get technical, not a 13B REW.
Oh, there it goes. Get them both? Yeah. Whoa, triangles and stuff.
The cool seal looks fine. No, it's broken.
Yeah.
It's definitely broken.
They break when they come apart. Yep.
Yeah.
So this discoloration in here or any marks in the housing could be from where this engine sat for such a long time without turning over. In addition, you can see the surface rust on the face of the rotor.
All right, so essentially what we have to do is if we want to rebuild this particular motor, we'd have to get new housings.
Yep.
We'd have to get new apex seals, springs, oil seals for the rotors. So we're basically looking at about $3,200 for all the parts, the housings, the whole kit.
Pretty much. Yep.
So we could maybe like go find a K series, say $1,500.
That'd be on the upper end, yeah.
Yeah, and we could probably do it cheaper than.
So this is going to cost at least 3 K series worth.
Yeah.
And this is the cheaper rotary.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank God you don't have an RAW.
Yeah, you could be spending $14,000 on a crate engine.
Right. Or 14 K series engines.
Yeah. So starting at the front of the engine, we've got to get this thing clean. Can't stack up a dirty engine. So first things first, I'm just gonna take a little razor blade. We're gonna clean the surface of the iron off, and then we're gonna go over with a nice wire brush, get the outside of this thing looking clean. We'll blow out all the oil passageways, and then we'll start on the Bridgeport. It's very important to get the rotors clean when you put one of these engines together, as well as you have to make sure that you've got every spring, seal, every single piece that goes in this rotor out to be able to make sure that that groove or hole is clean when you go to put your engine back together. So we've got our front iron cleaned, and we're gonna lay out this Bridgeport. I would highly suggest, if you're gonna port one of these rotary engines, that you get a porting template. So this is simply a thin piece of aluminum with a port designed by somebody with tons of experience racing rotary engines that fits on your iron to then tell us where the limits of these ports should be. You use the engine dowels in order to index this. And then we'll simply take a scribe and scribe the outline of the port on the face of the iron. So a Bridgeport is called a bridge because of the bridge that the corner seal rides on when you extend the port inside the engine. So much like porting and polishing a piston engine, you're gonna increase the size of the intake port in order to get more air into the engine. If you were to port the intake port of the rotary too big, the corner seal can fall out. So the bridge comes from providing a small bridge. You can get pretty brave with how thin you make that bridge for that corner seal to ride on, such it doesn't fall out of your engine and effectively destroy everything. So the benefit of bridge porting is that you're getting more intake air into the engine, thus you can make more horsepower. Typically a bridge port, the port you've extended is behind the bridge, so you're increasing the overlap in the rotary engine, which is what makes bridge ports have that iconic brap, 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 brap noise. Because what's happening is it's actually sucking up exhaust air, pushing intake air into the exhaust, and you get this weird pulsation of flow in the intake, which makes that brap happen.
Unfortunately, I'm told that RX8s don't brap because the ECU tuning is so good and it smooths it all out. And with the Bridgeport complete now, all that's left to finish is cleaning and restacking the engine.
Got the oil pan for the RX8 engine. We have found the mother of all sludge. This is literally insanity oil brownie in the bottom of this oil pan. I don't think this guy ran Valvoline oil in his engine. So this is our cut to fit side seal. When you lay the uncut cut to fit side seal in here, it's going to be too long. It's not going to fit with the corner seal, and this is what we're going to be cutting down to achieve the tolerance that we want. This fancy apparatus right here is something I came up with to clearance the side seal correctly. So this is drill press. We've got a bit in here that fits where the corner seal goes. Slide the side seal into this corner seal groove on this cut rotor, and we can clearance the end of the side seal to fit perfectly against the corner seal. We've got all our parts clean, we've got all of our seals clearance, we've got our rotors built, we're ready to stack this engine. Putting some Valvoline VR1 on the side of this engine so that way we don't have two dry metal surfaces on each other. We've got our magnetic base with our dial gauge on here. We're gonna check the end play of this engine. So this is the allowable tolerance of the eccentric shaft to wiggle back and forth. Y'all saw all the little Torrington bearings and the end play spacer, everything under this counterweight go down. That's what we use to adjust this stuff. And we've got just shy of 27 thou of end play here. So we are 1,000th within spec. Stoked. We've got our engine stacked, we got all the accessories dressed up on this thing, wire harness. It's mostly ready to go in the car. We've got Mark here now to help us get this thing installed. We're ready to take apart a perfectly good running car. All right, we got the engine back up in the car, and we're gonna leave this thing with Mark to fix everything, put everything back together that isn't the rotary.
Just
the rotary
the
stuff.
easy stuff.
Yeah, give me a call if there's any extra nuts and bolts left over.
Oh, there's gonna be
I
plenty.
can probably tell you where they go.
There's gonna be plenty. Believe that.
Cool, cool. Awesome.
All right, man.
Sir.
Thank you again
We'll
for
see
your
you.
help.
Yeah.
Thanks to Erich from Rad Potential, the RX8 is officially Bridgeported now. We have to put 500 miles on the engine to break it in before we take it to the dyno, so that'll have to wait for next episode. I'm dying to know how much power this engine will make now. Comment below with your best guess. Thanks again to Driving Line for sponsoring this series. Next weekend, we'll see what Ben does to his S2000 to try and keep up with this rotary monster.